Dear lovers of liberty, here at the LibertyCon 2025 in Prague, welcome back at this stage. I would like to introduce the next speaker. Next up, a session that tackles a fundamental and often debated question: what have the capitalists ever done for us? Offering perspective on this is Nikos Sotirakopoulos, a fellow at the Ayn Rand Institute. So prepare for an engaging exploration of the facts, figures, but also values and ideas. Please welcome Nikos Sotirakopoulos.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for being here. Here is one very important lesson that I was not taught in school or in university. History can be divided into eras, in two periods. The first era, which covers 99.9% of human history, I call it the life sucks era. And I call it the life sucks era because life, for the vast majority of people, indeed sucked. Life was short, life was a constant struggle, and most importantly, people didn't experience themselves as having control over their life. Where you were born or what was the profession of your parents mostly influenced how the rest of your life would go. And for that life sucks era, what was the way of acquiring wealth? What was the way of becoming rich? Well, the way of acquiring wealth is what I call the way of the Lannisters. You remember Lannisters from the Game of Thrones? How did the Lannisters become rich? It was through violence, through plunder, through intrigue. So the way to become rich is to take the very few stuff that other people had. But there was a second period in human history. And it covers only 0.1% of our time since Homo sapiens. It's only the last 250 years. And this period, I call it the life does not suck era. Because in this period, something changed. In this period, we became richer, we eradicated diseases, but most importantly, many people felt that life now was in their hands. They had some control over their fate. They had some control on what they would do with their lives. And if during the vast majority of history, the way of becoming rich was the Lannisters' way, in this last 0.1% of human history, there's a unique way of acquiring wealth. I will call this the J.K. Rowling way of acquiring wealth, which means you create something which is nice and beautiful, other people appreciate it, and they give you something back. You trade with someone. So you don't fight over crumbs, but now you create wealth, you produce wealth. So if we are good and decent human beings, we need to appreciate that we live in such a unique period, that we live in a period which is the exception, the tiny exception in human history. And also we need to understand it better. And one way of understanding it is by asking, who has been the protagonist of these glory days of humanity? Which is the group of people to whom we owe the biggest thank you? Which is the group of people who took us from the mud and literally elevated us to the skyscraper? And if you take a walk outside, and if you judge from who are the people to whom we build statues, you will think that the people to whom we owe the biggest thank you are kings, warriors, generals, politicians. And of course, we know that progress did not come from them in most cases. Actually, in most cases, progress came despite of the fact that what these people did. And if you ask some more people who think a bit more, they will say, we owe this progress to science. We owe the biggest heroes of humanity are the scientists. And I would say, okay, I can hear that. But think about it. There were clever people and good scientists throughout the history of humanity. but most of their knowledge died with them. Their knowledge didn't translate to billions of people having a better life. So today I will claim that there is another group, a different group, to which we owe a big thank you for the great days that we're experiencing. And this group is a group that no one ever bothers to mention when we're talking about the benefactors of humanity. Actually, it's a group that most people love to hate. It's a group that has been vilified. From Netflix series to Hollywood movies, it's the group that always is portrayed as the villains. So I'm talking about the great producers, the entrepreneurs, the industrialists, the businessmen and the businesswomen. And to use a dirty word, I'm talking about the capitalists. And emphasis, though, here goes to producers, because not everyone whose business card says capitalist is a producer. Some people want to become rich by government favors. They want to become rich by taking advantage of legislation. I'm talking about people who actually produce. So let's capitalize on the title of today. What have the capitalists done for us? And when I say us, I mean literally us, me and you and you and you, those of us in this room. How they have specifically impacted our life. So here's one thing that comes to mind. The entrepreneurs are the ones who translate scientific progress to the material improvement of our life. The scientist is over there in the lab, but it is the entrepreneur, it is the capitalist who takes the scientist's works and makes it relevant to my life. In a way, the capitalist makes the scientist work for me, quote unquote. If this sounds too abstract, think about it this way. Does any of you know or care about the physics of the electric currents? I almost failed high school on physics. I have no idea what this is. And yet, Steve Jobs used that knowledge to create the touchscreen. So he made the work of these scientists relevant to my life. The mind of the scientist, through the work of Steve Jobs, made my life better. Here's another way that the great producers benefit us. They literally add life to our lives. They add life to our lives. How? By saving us time. And time is all we have. Saving us time is one of the greatest gifts that we could get. Through all the inventions that we all take for granted, like the fridge, the car, or the internet, whatever, think how much of our time is saved. And now this time can be invested in things that we find more meaningful. We can invest that time in the things that make life more beautiful. So the great producers are the time liberators. And if there was a leftist here, they would say, okay, yes, maybe the capitalists, they produce things, but all this is too materialistic. What about the spiritual stuff? What about beauty? Actually, the more I think about it, it's more the right these days that says these things, but there's an answer to that. Who said that capitalism doesn't produce spiritual progress? Do we realize that every single book that was ever written and is available somewhere in the world, tomorrow morning or maybe in a week can reach your doorstep because of a capitalist like Jeff Bezos? Do we realize that any piece of music that was ever written and recorded is available 2 clicks away, mostly for free? And you are telling me there's no spiritual value in the work of the capitalists? And our leftist friend then would cope even harder, and he would say, okay, yes, maybe there's also spiritual value, but he would say, how did these capitalists become rich? They became rich by making other people poorer, by making the poor poorer. And I would say, what a load of BS. And actually, I would take it a step further. I would say it's the opposite. The entrepreneur, the capitalist, actually makes you richer does not make you poorer. Because the capitalist makes you more productive. I mean, think about it. Even if you're like a strongman deadlifting, I don't know, 100 kilos, how many pallets can you hold? Maybe you can carry 40 kilos in pallets. But here comes the capitalist and brings you one of these machines, and now you can carry 100 kilos per 5 minutes. So suddenly your work becomes 10 times more valuable, which means you become richer. Or again, not to give abstract examples, I'm a teacher. Who would be my audience if it weren't for the work of 5 entrepreneurs, the one who created Zoom, or the digital camera, or the one who created Twitter? My audience would be 30 people, my 30 students. That's it. Or maybe one day I would write a book and 200 people will read it. Now, through this greedy capitalist, my audience is huge. And I'm not even very big on Twitter. It's some thousands. But potentially it can be millions. Potentially it can be hundreds of millions of people. So through the capitalist, my work has become more valuable, which means the capitalist had made me richer, not poorer. So this and much more have the capitalists done for us. But it's not even what they did. Even how they did it is a lesson to us. Even how they created this wealth is something that can give us important contributions. Because let's reverse engineer it. How does an entrepreneur work? How does he create this wealth? Well, it starts here. It starts with an idea. The entrepreneur, if you think about it, is like an artist. He sees something which no one else sees. He sees something, he envisions something which is not yet there. But he doesn't just stop at the idea. I mean, I've had all sorts of great ideas throughout my life. And what did I do with them? Nothing. But the entrepreneur actually acts on the idea. And this acting part is often very difficult. He has to go through trials and tribulation and struggles. But he persists. He keeps going because his vision is so powerful. So at the end of the day, the entrepreneur goes through the hero's journey. But they're heroes with very human characteristics that are available to each one of us. Figure things out, how things work, draw causal relations, and then have a goal and act on it. This is available to all of us. They're the most human superheroes ever. And there is one last meta lesson in how the entrepreneurs work. I know the title says, what have the capitalists done for us? But if you think about it, who did they do all these things for? I mean, Jeff Bezos, when he wakes up in the morning, is he worried whether Nikos is going to find this book about 1930 Soviet Union that he couldn't find elsewhere? Of course not. He wants to live his life and have fun and go to space or Mars or wherever he's going, right? They follow their own dreams. They follow their own vision. But through that, I'm better off. And I say, what a great model for civilization this is. That we are not each other masters, nor each other servants. But we trade your best effort for my best effort. It's what Ayn Rand called the trader principle, which is so beautiful. I would say it's almost spiritual, right? It means we get better together. What a beautiful vision. We get better together. That's the only way a civilized society should work. And despite all these contributions, though, how does our society treat these people? With contempt, usually. As I said earlier, they're the villains. And I found this so unjust. I found this so preposterously unjust. Instead of celebrating them, at best, they treat them as with moral suspicion, and at worst, with outright contempt. Because the argument goes, okay, the fact that you are good in making money doesn't mean that you're virtuous. Doesn't mean that you're also a good person. And you know the worst thing? The capitalists actually believe that. They have internalized this belief that what they're doing, it has nothing specially good in it, and therefore they have to show us in other ways that they're good. Do you remember in 2023, a very, very cringe video that Apple produced, where it was Tim Cook and the whole executive team of Apple, and they had invited Mother Earth, and they were basically apologizing to Mother Earth, excuse us for our carbon footprint. And we promise that we're going to cut down our emissions and all that. And when I overcame the cringe shock, I was thinking how sad this is. Like, you people have changed history. You've created perhaps the coolest product in the history of humanity. And yet you're apologizing to whom? To people who hate you. And it took actually a very out-of-the-box thinker, a very radical thinker, right, like Ayn Rand, to say, you know what, people? Those of you who are the great producers, you are also morally good. Because productiveness is good. Because what does productiveness mean at the end of the day? It means I am good at using my mind in making the world a better place. I'm good in using my mind to make this earth more hospitable for human beings. How is this not a good thing? How is this not actually, forget good, how is this not actually a moral thing? How are you not a moral paragon when you make this earth more hospitable? So that's why I think we should recognize this hard pill to swallow, that these people are actually humanity at its best. These great producers are peak humanity. They're the best that humanity has ever has had to offer. And I will finish this with this, going back to the history divided in life sucks and life does not suck era. If we appreciate how rare it is that we live in these times, how rare it is that we live in this society where all this is possible for us, we also need to fight for this society. And fighting for this society also means defending these people who brought us the best of humanity's days. So next time you see a socialist of the left or a socialist of the right, next time you see them imposing barriers, tariffs, regulations to these producers, you should get angry. Because what you're actually seeing is people who have never created anything, people who could not run a candy shop, people who would bankrupt a casino, literally, trying to put barriers to the people who have given us all these great things. And I say this is infuriating. So you should get angry and you should stand up for them. And tell you what, you shouldn't do it for them. Don't stand up for Mark Zuckerberg or for Jeff Bezos for them. Do it for you. Do it for yourself. Do it as a sign of appreciation for the type of world that you live in. And just a thought to leave you with. I'm sure that now, as we talk, somewhere there is someone in a lab or in front of a computer who is creating something brilliant. Maybe a gadget, maybe an idea, maybe a protocol, maybe a product, something that one day might save your life or the life of someone you love. But for these minds to exist and to operate, they need freedom. So this is why we fight for freedom. Because we fight, at the end of the day, for life itself. Thank you very much. Thank you. Is there anarchy here, or is someone in charge of the Q&A? Oh, here it is. Okay.
Any questions? Hello. You will apologize, I have a slight irritation of the voice, so I will speak a little softly. I want to put a scenario to you. I'm a native of Ireland. You could call Ireland in many ways one of the most capitalistic countries in Western Europe.
Which country is that, sorry?
Ireland,
Ireland.
yes. We have been a huge success economically, at least on paper. We have a very highly skilled society. Everybody knows this. We also are the headquarters of many of the largest, most successful corporations, which of course are born of these producers that you have mentioned. Google, Meta, many of these are based where we are. However, we are also highly under-regulated, which you could say is a good thing, and I would agree with you. But what this means in practice is that these international organizations are in a position where they can buy all of the available housing in our country. Now, this, by extension, automatically discredits and disadvantages the population. And we are in the unusual context at the moment where Irish people statistically will live at home until they are 35, those who do not leave for Australia. There is no doubt that this has benefited us in other ways, but the fundament of capital should be and will always be right to own property. And Irish people have had this stripped from them because of this otherwise huge benefit that we have been partial to. What do you think?
Look, the housing problem exists in every country, but I don't think it's multinational corporations who are to blame for that. I mean, we have a huge housing problem in Greece. Where is Google and Apple in Greece? I tell you why we have this problem. Number one, because it's a bureaucratic nightmare to build, even if you have the land. And particularly in the UK, where I have most of my experience having lived there for years, the vast majority of a country, you cannot build there. So housing is a problem of limited supply. Now, the fact that this little supply that you have, many people bid for this, is true. But the problem is not capitalism or the big corporations. The problem is that we are not allowed to build. And we should be shouting from the rooftops that we should be allowed to build.
I'm terribly sorry. I just need to add one more thing. You're absolutely right, no doubt. But I should have added this in my initial discourse. Of the available housing, the housing which has been allowed to be constructed, statistically only 27% is on the commercial market. The rest has been bought preemptively before available to the market. So we do have this, what you're describing, but we also have a lack of access by the population to what exists.
Yeah, but the lack of access to the population is a problem because Google has preemptively bought land. I mean, if they don't use this land, if they don't put it to a productive use, then they've made a stupid investment. So I don't think the problem is that.
Thank you for your speech.
Thank you.
How can I, as an ordinary person, can defend or keep freedom?
Well, here's how you can defend it and what would be a good start. First of all, to have a clear view that freedom is under attack both from the left and from the right. Because I remember the 4 years when Biden was in the White House, I thought that conservatives were allies. I thought that we were fighting together socialism, whether it was real or imagined in their head, but I thought, or at least they told me that we're on the same side. And now we view, for example, that conservative administrations or quote-unquote conservative administration are the worst enemies of freedom. They are going to you, to the producer, and they're telling you, you cannot hire these people. You have to jump through 100 steps. And you cannot plan, not long-term, you cannot even plan within three months from now, because I might tomorrow morning change my mind and change my tariff policy for the 15th time in the last week. But you know the problem, most people are not intellectually honest to say things as they are. First they ask the question, is this my side or is the other side? And when the other side is doing something bad or something that goes against freedom, they are up in arms. When their side is doing something, they are quiet. So the first thing to do is be intellectually honest. And the second thing, those of you who were lucky enough yesterday to be in Larry Reid's talk, be courageous. Quite often, it is very difficult to speak up. Do you remember the dark days in the first weeks of the pandemic and the lockdowns? It was very difficult to speak up against the lockdowns. And yet some people did it. Initially it was like 2, 3 people. I remember them almost one by one. And then there were 4, 5, 6, more and more and more. So by speaking up, now you become someone who people admire you, first of all, because of your bravery, but also they say, okay, such a brave person, they might have something to say, let me listen to them. And the third thing is, have also intellectual clarity. So that's one of the main reasons why the left has won the battle of ideas, because they engaged a bit more with the battle of ideas. So when we speak, we need to know our homework very well, whether we talk about tariffs or whether we talk about what are the problems with the left or the history of communism, we need to take it seriously. So these would be some first thoughts on how to fight.
Anyone?
Then thank you very much, I guess. Thanks a lot, everyone.
Thank you for your insights. And we have a little bit of time for another talk. So thank you, Nikos, for the talk, and we can continue. On no less important topic, and we have just have a quick pause right now, and then we will continue at 16:30 in panel discussion with our beautiful guests. So just get a Kyselacz. Operace Kyselacz is waiting for you outside, and all the money are going to support Ukraine. So just drink a really tasty beer. They have like 3 options, so that's just announcement about the Operace Kyselacz, and we will be back in few minutes for a panel discussion. So enjoy the LibertyCon and the last hours on this conference.